It's called Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat!
Mortal Kombat!
Mortal Kombat. It's something we hear all the time, but what does it actually mean? And how has it evolved? Anyone even remotely familiar with this series knows the characters: Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Suhao, Meat, Mocap. You know, all the legends. But what about the overarching story? For over 3 decades, from Midway to NetherRealm Studios, the narrative has twisted and turned through sequels, prequels, and countless retcons.
Shao Kahn trusts few, except the fighters of his own creation. Collecting the blood of countless warriors and infusing it with sorcery, he created the bloodthirsty Scarlet.
To think, you once roamed the streets.
I owe my place to your generosity.
The fighters may dominate the spotlight, but the story, despite its occasional backseat role, has always fascinated me. However, throughout my various tier list videos on this channel, I've never assessed the series game by game. Until now. Today's video begins a 3-part series where I will revisit and rank every Mortal Kombat story ever, from S, which is the best, through D, which is the worst. When all is said and done, I will declare one of these the GOAT.
That is why he is the MVP. That is why he is the GOAT. The GOAT.
Here's how we're gonna attack this. Mainline games take priority, while handheld games are considered only for crucial lore. Spin-offs like Mythologies, Special Forces, and Shaolin Monks are fair game. And finally, while character endings won't be the focus, those that affect the overarching plot must be considered. Part 1 covers MK 1992, MK2, MK3, MK Mythologies Sub-Zero, MK4, and finally, MK Special Forces. Keep in mind that this isn't the definitive ranking, but rather a fun exploration of the narratives that make Mortal Kombat more than just a fighting game. With all that said, let's get to it and rank every story in Mortal Kombat history. But first, what better place to start than where it all began in 1992, the original Mortal Kombat. This game arrived in arcades in August 1992 and became what some would argue one of the best video games of all time. It revolutionized fighting games in many ways, especially with the explicit violence. But what about the story? The game itself doesn't provide much of a baseline plot apart from this screen, which reads, Goro lives. A 2,000-year-old half-human dragon, Goro remains undefeated for the past 500 years. He won the title of Grand Champion by defeating Kung Lao, a Shaolin fighting monk. It was during this period that the tournament fell into Shang Tsung's hands and was corrupted. Digging deeper into the instruction booklet and you learn more about the storyline. For the past 500 years, the depraved Shang Tsung has held an annual combat tournament on his remote island. His long-standing champion is Goro, a huge 4-armed mutant warrior whose prowess provides the loser's soul that become the life force to keep Shang Tsung young. Today, 7 contestants are assembled, each one a master warrior with special powers. As the rules of the contest dictate, they must fight each other and a carbon copy of themselves before taking on Goro, and ultimately Shang Tsung himself. Who will be the real winner? All 7 characters, Sonya Blade, Kano, Johnny Cage, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden, and Liu Kang, each had their own ending, but only Liu Kang's is the true canonical ending. It reads as follows. After defeating Mighty Goro and putting an end to Shang Tsung's rule over the tournament, Kang is able to return the contest to its rightful hosts, the Shaolin Temples. Kang's heroics will always be remembered. He will continue the traditions of the Shaolin Temples and restore the true pride and respect of this once great tournament. That covers everything in the main story in the first Mortal Kombat game, from the setup to the payoff in Liu Kang's ending. And you also have some side plots developing between Kano and Sonya, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and Raiden's mysterious presence in the universe. These stories and many more would broaden over the next 3 decades, but this is where it all began. There's not much more to cover here, so let's get to the analysis. Positive number 1. Setting the stage. This game created the foundation of Mortal Kombat, giving us the tournament, the characters, and the stakes. To make this simple, we wouldn't have the series we have today if it weren't for this game. Everything started here, and no matter how you feel about the game itself, MK 1992 laid the foundation. Positive number 2. Simplicity. This story is simple and digestible, whereas later games will get increasingly more confusing and at times hard to follow. While the format is a little confusing, I do like the inclusion that each warrior will have to fight a carbon copy of themselves. That justifies the purpose of the iconic mirror match, and it's something that I don't think is ever mentioned again. Positive number 3. The roster. The real Mortal Kombat 1 gave us 10 of the most memorable characters in fighting game history, 2 of which are arguably the most memorable. Had these characters not looked so cool and have such unique abilities, I don't think the series would have lasted as long as it has. The vagueness behind their stories also created more intrigue for later entries because you want to know more about them. Positive number 4. The villains. Expanding on positive 3, villains Goro and Shang Tsung were iconic at the time, and that has remained the case over the last 3 decades. In a vacuum, this 4-armed behemoth and this old man who can morph into any character, including said 4-armed behemoth, and shoot skulls out of his hands, helped make this story and game what it is. Whether you were in the arcade or at home, players seeking to conquer Mortal Kombat spent countless hours and money, and I think the 2 villains are a big part of that. Positive number 5. The vagueness. I touched on this not too long ago, but the story is mysterious and vague, which played heavily into this game's favor. The developers probably didn't have a clue what they had on their hands, but the demand for a second game was inevitable. While the vagueness may not have been intentional, the questions surrounding these characters and the bigger picture boosted this game's relevance. And yeah, the violence too. Now to the negatives. For negative number 1, the minimalism. It's hard to really fault this game for anything, given the technology and it being a fighting game and all. With that said, the characters are great but not fleshed out nearly enough. Thankfully, the following games corrected this issue, but I can't ignore it here. Negative number 2. No clear protagonist. Expanding on negative 1, this game doesn't establish one specific fighter as the definitive protagonist. I think by default, it could have been anyone, but you could tell this was not at the forefront when the 4-person development team worked on Mortal Kombat. Simplicity is this game's strong point, and the story is genuinely intriguing. It doesn't reveal too much, which probably wasn't intentional, but gives just enough to help you understand the stakes and the fighters. Sure, it's basic and vague as all hell, but you have to put yourself back in 1992 when these cinematic story modes weren't a thing. As I said before, only 4 people worked on this game with limited space and resources to tell a compelling story. With that in mind, I think the finished product is well executed. Although you are left with more questions than answers, it's at least digestible. The plot would only get more complicated from here, and I look back and acknowledge that this laid the foundation for one of the most historic video game franchises of all time, a story that would be retold many times over the years. Without this game, the rest of the series, from the characters to the setting to the world building, would not have been possible. It's definitely not the best story in the series since it's pretty basic, but considering its historical significance, the story told in the original Mortal Kombat game respectfully lands it in the B tier.
Well done.
Midway took just 1 year to release a sequel to the first Mortal Kombat game, and let me tell you, Mortal Kombat 2 took the first game and elevated it. The roster expanded to include some new characters to complement those that returned from the first game. The story takes somewhat of a dark turn, shifting from Shang Tsung's island in the first game to the eerie atmosphere of Outworld. The infamous Attract mode provides more details than its predecessor, which paints a vivid portrait of what this game offers. 500 years ago, Shang Tsung was banished to Earthrealm. With the aid of Goro, he was to unbalance the Furies and doom the planet to a chaotic existence. By seizing control of the Shaolin tournament, he tried to tip the scales of order towards chaos. Only 7 warriors survived the battles, and Shang Tsung's scheme would come to a violent end at the hands of Liu Kang. Facing execution for his failure and apparent death of Goro, Tsung convinces Shao Kahn to grant him a second chance. Shang Tsung's new plan is to lure his enemies to compete in the Outworld, where they will meet certain death by Shao Kahn himself. Now, the combat continues, and then you'd hear this track. As you can see, this story introduces Shao Kahn, the Emperor of Outworld, a power even higher than the sorcerer Shang Tsung. Goro's death in the previous game thwarted the evildoer's plans to take control of Earthrealm. Despite his failure, Shang Tsung convinces the Emperor to give him a second chance. This results in the Outworld villains luring the heroes to their home turf for another tournament. From a character perspective, Mortal Kombat 2 introduces a whopping 11 new fighters. Although Reptile technically appeared in Mortal Kombat 1, he was a secret fighter with zero backstory. The other characters include the following: Kung Lao, another Shaolin monk like Liu Kang; Jax, a special forces member searching for his missing partner Sonya from the first game; Mileena, a dazzling assassin for Shao Kahn and twin sister of Kitana; Kitana, another dazzling assassin for Shao Kahn and twin sister of Mileena. She's the less evil of the two. Baraka, a mutant who led the attack on the Shaolin monks to open the game. Reptile, the green ninja from the first game and Shang Tsung's personal protector. Kintaro, another 4-armed behemoth like Goro. And finally, the villain of the game, Shao Kahn, the Emperor of Outworld who orchestrated the invasion of Earthrealm. Also, let's not forget Smoke, Noob Saibot, and Jade, who debut in this game but only as secret characters. Liu Kang's ending is canon once again, officially declaring him the primary protagonist. With his Shaolin Temple in ruins, Liu Kang journeys into Outworld, enters Shao Kahn's tournament, and unleashes a fury that does not end until the defeat of Shao Kahn. Liu Kang then returns to the seclusion of his Shaolin Temple. He pays his respects to his lost brothers and finally realizes that the events which have taken place were all fulfillment of his destiny. A nice happy ending for sure, but somewhat anticlimactic if I don't say so myself. There's no cliffhanger, which eliminates the intrigue for a follow-up, but that's no different from the first game. In reality, there was no other viable ending for this game, since as I mentioned earlier, Liu Kang is the main character. Beyond his ending, we have more canonical story development with a few other characters, which I think increases the game's stock exponentially. MK2 sets up Kitana as unfaithful to her supposed father Shao Kahn, and Mileena is the polar opposite. We also get more development in the Scorpion Sub-Zero feud, with this game explaining that this version of Sub-Zero is the brother of the Sub-Zero from the first game, who Scorpion killed. Jax also rescues Sonya from Shao Kahn's arena and her rival Kano escapes. Last but not least, I feel it's worth mentioning that the backdrop on the Pit 2 stage would ultimately lead to this character being important in the series, but we'll get there in due time. While on the surface it may not seem like much story development is happening here, there's a lot of meat on Mortal Kombat 2's bones.
Come here!
Positive number 1, expanding the lore. MK2 does a great job expanding the lore behind the tournament and the motivations of the antagonists and the protagonists. This is where the story really started to take shape. It allowed us to learn more about the characters and immerse ourselves in this developing world. While the storytelling method still isn't ideal, you can't fault the developers for that. They did a great job, all things considered. Positive number 2, the atmosphere. Mortal Kombat 2 ups the ante with the dark and dreary Outworld atmosphere, giving us some of the most iconic stages and environments ever. My personal favorites are the Wasteland and Deadpool, but from a story perspective, the setting is critical. Considering the limited resources, this literally paints the picture of Outworld, making it a definitive improvement from the first game. Positive number 3, Shao Kahn. Yeah, you knew this one was coming. Shao Kahn's introduction was perhaps the standout inclusion in this game. He's an upgrade from every conceivable angle over Shang Tsung. And that's not a knock on Shang either, but more so praise for Shao Kahn, who is an absolute menace through the narrow lens of this game. His hammer, taunts, and difficulty help tie this game together perfectly. Positive number 4, more characters. The roster expansion was not only needed, but it also allowed the lore to develop further. I'd like to highlight Scorpion and Sub-Zero, as the revelation that this version is different from the first game became a pivotal moment in the series. There's also young Shang Tsung, Kitana, Baraka, Mileena, and Kung Lao's debut, the cameos by Sonya and Kano, and while not story related, but the first appearance of Jade, Smoke, and Noob Saibot. Positive number 5, MK2 does everything better. Few times can you say a sequel is better across the board than its predecessor. That is absolutely the case with MK2, despite suffering the same limitations. The vibes just feel different in this game. From the unique backdrops to the antagonists, it's all just so good. Now to the negatives, and I only have 2. For the first one, Shao Kahn's motivation. While he is an icon and terrifying, Shao Kahn's motivations are unclear in MK2. We know he wants to defeat Earthrealm in Mortal Kombat and that he has essentially manipulated the rules to make that happen, but why? I guess because he's evil, and I suppose the ambiguous nature of his motivations play into the allure of another sequel, but a clearer picture would have helped the narrative. It's also a mystery why Earthrealm would entertain this idea in the first place. But I guess the motivation here is that Shang Tsung successfully used Baraka and his mutant forces' slaughter of the Shaolin monks to draw Earthrealm into Outworld. On that same note, Mortal Kombat 2 forces you to dig deeper to put the pieces of the story together, which isn't ideal. Thankfully, we now have the internet to put all of this information together, but like the first game, it makes the story a bit less digestible. I feel it's neck and neck with the first game as being perhaps the most influential game in the series from a storyline perspective. We have the introduction of Shao Kahn, more character development from the core roster, and new interesting characters with equally interesting backstories. This game spawned several of the series' most beloved fighters, many of which appeared in several ensuing games. Let's not forget the subtle yet crucial introduction of Kuai Liang, who would carry the Sub-Zero mantle for the next 26 years. I can certainly understand the argument that the self-contained Outworld tournament plot is nothing to write home about, but the Mortal Kombat characters are an obvious extension of the story, and there's a lot going on here. I think it tells a great story. The shift to Outworld was welcomed, and the introduction of Shao Kahn was a pivotal moment in the series, since he is unquestionably the most iconic and recognizable Mortal Kombat villain. I feel that I've made a compelling enough case to put Mortal Kombat 2's story in the S tier.
Outstanding.
After battling Shao Kahn and the rest of Outworld on their turf, Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and Mortal Kombat Trilogy brought the fight to Earthrealm in 1995 and 1996. It's worth noting that all 3 games offer the same storyline, with the only difference being a few character bios and endings here and there. Now getting back to the plot, the Emperor did not take kindly to Liu Kang bodying him, so he and his Outworld army invaded Earthrealm in unquestionably the most complex story yet. First, let's cover the plot outline provided by the game as told through Raiden's narration. You've been chosen to represent Earth in Mortal Kombat. Be warned, although your souls are protected against Shao Kahn's evil, your lives are not. I cannot interfere any longer, as your Earth is now ruled by the Outworld gods. These are the words of Raiden. For centuries, Earth has used Mortal Kombat to defend itself against Outworld's Emperor Shao Kahn. But Khan becomes frustrated by failed attempts at taking Earth through tournament battle. He enacts a plan which began 10,000 years ago. During this time, Khan had a queen. Her name was Sindel, and her young death was unexpected. Khan's shadow priests, led by Shang Tsung, make it so Sindel's spirit would someday be reborn, not on the Outworld, but on the Earthrealm itself. This unholy act gives Shao Kahn the power to step through the dimensional gates and reclaim his queen, thus enabling him to finally seize Earth. Upon breaching the portal into Earth, Shao Kahn slowly transforms the planet into part of Outworld itself. Khan strips the Earth of all human life, claiming every soul as his own. But there are souls which Khan cannot take. These souls belong to the warriors chosen to represent Earth in a new Mortal Kombat. The remaining humans are scattered throughout the planet. Shao Kahn sends an army of fierce Outworld warriors to find and eliminate them. After the first tournament, Sonya Blade turned up missing.
What? Okay, back up. How the hell do you turn up missing?
Jax then embarked on a rescue mission into the Outworld. He found Sonya being held captive with her nemesis Kano. In freeing Sonya, Jax also frees Kano. Kano then uses the chance to escape arrest. The ultimate advancement in Lin Kuei technology comes with the creation of the first cyber assassin. They begin converting their human ninjas into soulless machines, but Sub-Zero refuses to take part and is marked for death by his own clan. After winning the first Mortal Kombat and escaping from the Outworld, Liu Kang looks to the future. He begins training a new generation of Shaolin alongside Kung Lao, but nothing could prepare them for the unexpected Outworld invasion. Across MK3, UMK3, and Trilogy, 12 new characters joined the roster with varying levels of importance to the overall plot, but none were more significant than Sindel, the queen referenced in the intro. Now let's play a fun game of guess whose ending is canon in Mortal Kombat 3. Is it A, Scorpion, B, Stryker, C, Jade, or D, Liu Kang? I'll give you a moment. Alright, if you said B, Stryker, you've gotta be kidding me. The correct answer, of course, is Liu Kang. For the third consecutive game, Liu Kang is the winner, having defeated Shao Kahn once again, which produced this ending. After thwarting Shao Kahn in the past, Liu Kang finds himself the prime target of Shao Kahn's extermination squads. But Kang is the reigning Mortal Kombat champion and proves it by easily defeating Kahn's minions. But it's the apparent death of his friend Kung Lao that enrages Kang and enables him to find the strength to defeat Shao Kahn. Then, before the portal closes, Liu Kang is greeted by Princess Kitana and thanked for saving the Earth and the Outworld. The core plot of MK3 revolves around this invasion of Earthrealm through a loophole. The antagonists are able to defy the Elder Gods by resurrecting Sindel in Earthrealm, which breaks the barrier separating it from Outworld. Then it's open season as Shao Kahn and his minions invade in an attempt to finally conquer Earthrealm. It's yet another solid plot that further evolves the lore while providing a nice change of scenery. Instead of the dark Outworld setting from MK2, MK3 provides a familiar backdrop as Liu Kang and the rest of Earthrealm's mightiest heroes attempt to overcome the Emperor. When all is said and done at the end of MK3, Cyrax is stuck in a desert, Sonya yeets Kano off of a skyscraper, Sindel learns of her true past, including her daughter Kitana, true King Jared, and her home of Edenia, Kung Lao is presumed dead, Smoke was cyberized as part of the Lin Kuei's cyber initiative, Kitana and Jade defeat Reptile and save the corrupted Queen Sindel, Johnny Cage was killed and resurrected, and Mileena becomes a servant of Shinnok. Positive number 1, a new setting. This game offers another mixture of different areas to battle, like the bank, balcony, bell tower, and my personal favorite, the Soul Chamber. I personally enjoyed the shift to the Earthrealm setting as the final leg of this trilogy. Positive number 2, more characters. Although MK3 had some notable absences, UMK3 and Trilogy rectified that, and the new characters introduced were all solid additions. Let's not forget the returning characters who continued their respective stories, like Scorpion, Katana, Sub-Zero, and there's a bunch more. Positive number 3, more complexity. MK3 offers a much more complex story, yet it's still reasonably straightforward. Shao Kahn is furious after his loss to Liu Kang, and will stop at nothing to take control of Earthrealm. Instead of waiting to properly win Mortal Kombat, he decides to invade Earthrealm because of this gray area revolved around the former deceased Edenian queen, Sindel. It's simple yet effective, and it justifies Kahn's role in the story. There's also the individual character stories that I just mentioned. Positive number 4, Shao Kahn plus Motaro. Despite losing in the last game, Shao Kahn remains a strong, intimidating presence in MK3. The first fight against him wasn't easy, and this one definitely won't be any easier. Also, while not expanded upon very well, Motaro is a cool enforcer. Positive number 5, upping the stakes. After 2 failed attempts, I thought Shao Kahn's decision to invade Earthrealm through this loophole was interesting. It increased the sense of danger, with people of Earth losing their souls left and right. This was a good setup for the 3rd installment. Now, let's get to the negatives. Negative number 1, giving all the characters purpose. The addition of more fighters is a definite plus, but from a story perspective, there are quite a few more mouths to feed. These additional characters meant more resources needed to be invested in telling each one's story appropriately. The game does a solid job overall with this, but it's hard to piece together exactly what's happening and how all of these characters factor in and matter. Negative number 2, the ending. Look, I'm okay with Liu Kang winning again, but I personally would have preferred if the canonical triumph over Shao Kahn went to someone else. This could have been the definitive moment to shift the narrative or give another established name the chance to shine. I understand why it ended up being Liu Kang again, as his canonical ending effectively wrapped up this 3-game arc, but it still felt like a missed opportunity. Negative number 3, the downfall of the tournament. We are 3 games in, and the tournament format which the first game was built upon has been completely abandoned. And it would remain that way for a long time. I suppose it's necessary, since how many times can you realistically do a tournament, but I always found this format interesting and would have liked to see more from it. The game also retains the same ladder setup while playing solo, despite it making much more sense in the first 2 games. I've listed a few negatives, but make no mistake about it, MK3 does offer a solid story from top to bottom. It effectively represented the end of the trilogy, as the series would soon shift to 3D with spin-offs and even more characters. I enjoy most of what the game provides, especially with the development of Shao Kahn, but there's just a few hiccups that I can't ignore. Overall, I'm giving MK3 a solid A-tier grade.
It's perfect. Everything, down to the last minute detail.
The root of our evil.
Following Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Midway would enter development for the next Mortal Kombat game in August 1996. But this time, instead of a 2D fighting game, an action-adventure beat-em-up would arrive in October 1997, called Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. This game was the first spin-off in the series' history, and quite a departure from what fans were accustomed to up until this point. Mythologies was a more story-driven game, centered around, you guessed it, Sub-Zero. However, this was not Kuai Liang from MK2 and MK3. It was instead Bi-Han, the Sub-Zero from the first game. Yes, Mythologies was a prequel that would explain Bi-Han's pre-Mortal Kombat adventures. It would also help set up Mortal Kombat 4, which would arrive later in 1997. Anyway, the story goes like this. Shao Kahn wasn't the first to attack our realm. Thousands of years ago, Shinnok existed as an elder god. The elder gods are the true rulers of all realms. They watch as worlds are created and destroyed and govern the realms with untold eons of wisdom. Shinnok, however, gave in to greed and illusions of false power by the new realm of Earth. If he could have that realm to himself, he would have power unmatched. He first would have to face the young god of thunder known as Raiden, who was appointed as Earth's guardian by the Elder Gods themselves. Their battle for the realm of Earth was fierce, causing the planet's near destruction and plunging it into centuries of darkness. Raiden soon discovered that Shinnok entered the realm through the powers of a mystical amulet. It allowed Shinnok to enter the realm without challenge and keep the other Elder Gods from intervening. The amulet could only be created once, and Raiden stripped it from Shinnok's possession. With the aid of the true Elder Gods, he banished the fallen Elder God into a place known as the Netherrealm. Raiden buried the amulet deep within the mountains of Asia. He then created a massive temple within the mountain to house the amulet and appointed 4 guardians as the protectors of Shinnok's sacred amulet. Each guardian represents one of the 4 elements that make up the realm: wind, earth, water, and fire. As long as the amulet remained on Earth, Shinnok would be trapped, forced to remain dormant for the rest of eternity. Over the millennia, the Netherrealm has had many rulers. Most of them were forged within its fiery pits, eventually ripping their masters mercilessly from their thrones. One, however, came not from the bowels of the Netherrealm, but from the heavens of reality. He was the fallen Elder God known as Shinnok. Upon entering the realm, Shinnok found himself immediately under attack by its then ruler, Lucifer. Yes, that Lucifer. He would exist tortured and tormented by the dregs of hell for thousands of years, until he met Quan Chi. Quan Chi is a free roaming sorcerer. That means that he can travel the various planes of reality without detection from their gods. It also means that over the years he has obtained great power. Aware of Shinnok's dilemma, Quan Chi traveled to the Netherrealm and made the fallen Elder God an offer. He will free him from his confines and assist him in defeating Lucifer and his minions, in exchange for power and the ability to rule at his side if and when he escapes the Netherrealm entirely. Shinnok agreed, and the two waged a war in the Netherrealm that lasted for centuries. But the ex-Elder God eventually won as he viciously slew his former master, then took his seat as the new ruler supreme of the Dead Realm. Shinnok, however, had nothing to rule. The realm was a desolate wasteland of fire and brimstone, inhabited by grotesque demons. So he decided to create a physical world, trying his best to emulate the realm he wanted so badly: Earth. He took the demons of his realm and transformed them into as human a form as possible. But unlike the Outworld, which became a wasteland after Shao Kahn sapped its energies, the Netherrealm was never a living planet. It always existed as a dead world, its true form hidden by its ruler. It was through the Mortal Kombat tournament that the Outworld soul-stealing sorcerer Shang Tsung discovered the location of the sacred map of elements. After Goro, the reigning Outworld champion, defeated the original Kung Lao over 400 years ago, Shang Tsung sapped the human soul. He retained his thoughts and memories, thus discovering the secrets of the sacred map, which has been hidden within the Shaolin temples for centuries. These events enabled Shang Tsung to strike a bargain with Quan Chi. In exchange for Shinnok's assistance in a plot to reincarnate the Outworld Emperor Shao Kahn's dead queen, Shang Tsung would reveal to Quan Chi the location of the map that would lead to Shinnok's sacred amulet. But Shang Tsung failed to inform Quan Chi of the elemental guards that protect the amulet. Their mere existence makes it impossible for Quan Chi to enter the temple where the amulet rests. But if he could get a human to enter, the right human, one who could perhaps defeat the elements. Somewhere in the northernmost parts of Asia, there exists a secret clan of assassins and thieves known as the Lin Kuei. This group has existed for centuries and thrives on the evil intention of the people who pay for their services. Its warriors are chosen at birth to be raised apart from the workings of day-to-day civilization and are stripped of their former lives. Only the clan knows their existence. Each of them possesses certain skills and abilities that set them apart from normal man. These abilities are passed on from generation to generation and honed throughout the experiences of life. Sub-Zero learned of his ability as a young adult. It was passed on to him by his father, a 4th generation Lin Kuei warrior himself. Among his first missions of the Lin Kuei is one that leads him to the Shaolin temples to steal the sacred map of elements. Spread throughout Japan, the ninja exists as the Lin Kuei's Japanese counterpart. It is believed that a renegade Japanese-born Lin Kuei warrior named Takeda developed the art of ninjutsu hundreds of years ago. He returned to Japan to offer his services and knowledge to various lords and generals during that country's feudal period. Many of his skills and techniques were soon copied and learned throughout his homeland. The ninja have never existed as one collected clan. They work as a loosely connected spy network made up of several small clans. One such clan is known as the Shirai Ryu. Their founder was Takeda himself, making the Shirai Ryu the very first ninja clan. This almost made them instant foes of the Lin Kuei and made Takeda a target for assassination. But he managed to elude his attackers until his elder years, when he died not from a vicious battle, but in his sleep. A victim of poison slipped into his tea. Scorpion is the code name for a modern-day member of the Shirai Ryu named Hanzo Hasashi. His latest mission leads him to the heart of China, home of the rival Lin Kuei and location of the Shaolin Temple, where his mission is to steal the sacred map of elements. This essentially serves as an in-depth prologue of the events of MK Mythologies, and it's incredibly important to understand. Getting back to the plot of Mythologies, as I said, Bi-Han is the game's main character. He receives a task from another sorcerer named Quan Chi in his series debut. Bi-Han must embark on an adventure to locate the Map of Elements, which contains the location of Shinnok's amulet, an artifact that would become important later in the series. After finding the map, Sub-Zero learns of Quan Chi's intentions to free Shinnok, the fallen Elder God, from his Netherrealm imprisonment. Quan Chi ultimately retrieves
The amulet! I have Shinnok's amulet!
Whose amulet?
Whose amulet?
Bi-Han pursues him to regain the powerful artifact.
Because you're going to the Nether Realm, and you're going to bring back the amulet. We must act quickly. I have no dominion in the Nether Realm. You are reality's only hope.
I'll do it, Thunder God.
Apart from the primary story, Mythologies also further explores the rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero.
Don't bother worrying about escape.
Who are you?
I am a dead man, but somehow you have retained your mortality, which would mean you are vulnerable to death. I am Scorpion. You killed me in cold blood.
I had no choice.
It's confirmed in this game that while Bi-Han did eliminate Hanzo Hasashi, it was Quan Chi that exterminated his family and the Shirai Ryu, which led to the creation of the Hellspawn Scorpion.
My wife and child.
You're mistaken. Quan Chi is responsible for their deaths.
Words will not save you. Lin Kuei, warrior.
This storyline would remain mostly consistent throughout the series. As for the ancillary characters, the Thunder God Raiden appears in a few scenes to help guide Sub-Zero. Quan Chi's female assassins, Kia, Jitaka, and Serena also appear in this game for the first time ever. The game concludes with Bi-Han defeating Shinnok in his demon form before returning the amulet to Raiden. He then returns to the Lin Kuei Grand Master, who reveals that a sorcerer named Shang Tsung wants him to compete in a tournament called
Mortal Kombat.
This game also marks the debut of Fujin, although it's a non-speaking role and he's just a boss character in the game. Positive number 1, new villains. We've had several games of Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung, so it was time to change it up. Quan Chi and Shinnok would become mainstays through multiple timelines, and this was their origin. With context, the motivations of these two villains in this game are quite interesting, and I like the atmosphere it creates. Don't forget about the iconic Shang Tsung cameo, who was played by the same guy as Quan Chi, a true deadly alliance. Positive number 2, incredible lore development. The context gathered from the instruction manual made all the difference in the world. I'm not gonna dig deep into it here since I already did that, but it's so expansive and it really sets the precedent for the game. We have everything from Shinnok's background, Raiden's battle with Shinnok, Quan Chi's role in the story, some lore behind Scorpion and Sub-Zero's feud, and even context to what led to the events of MK3's story. The plot conveyed in the game itself is perfectly fine, but it bumps to another level with this little paper booklet. Positive number 3, Sub-Zero vs. Scorpion. I enjoyed the expansion of Sub-Zero's backstory and adventures before the tournament depicted in the first game. Mythologies also broadens the lore behind Scorpion and Sub-Zero's iconic feud, while introducing Quan Chi as essentially the catalyst of this rivalry. Interestingly enough, this is perhaps the most important chapter in the rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Since this is a prequel, we get to follow Bi-Han on this adventure and learn that he eliminated Scorpion but not his clan or family. This was my favorite part of the whole game without question. Pinning the entire annihilation of the Shirai Ryu on Quan Chi was an interesting choice, but I enjoyed that there's some moral ambiguity behind Scorpion's vengeance. He's clearly manipulated by Quan Chi, but that doesn't necessarily make Bi-Han the hero either. This served as a pivotal moment in unquestionably the most iconic feud of the entire series. Positive number 4, Shinnok's Amulet. This artifact would become important throughout the series, even in the latest game. Regardless of how you feel about the amulet as a plot device, it's worth honoring that this was its inception. Positive number 5, a cinematic story. Say what you will about Mythologies as a game, because yes, it is painful, but it was nice to finally have a narrative story with cutscenes. That alone makes the experience unlike most games, especially since it's live action. Now getting to the negatives. Negative number 1, the retcon. Although the Shang Tsung cameo was cool, the pointless retcon of Sub-Zero's reason for joining the tournament in the first game was a bizarre choice. He was initially sent to assassinate Shang Tsung, but now he's been invited by him? That's pretty confusing. I'm not sure if the developers had a more elaborate plan with this, but as far as I know, it went nowhere. Retconning Sub-Zero's purpose for joining the tournament in the first game felt unnecessary. Negative number 2, what the f***? This game is genuinely hard to take seriously. The cutscenes are so over the top and the acting is hilariously bad at times. I'm not sure if that was the intention, but some of the cutscenes are just look.
Why did you help me?
I still have fun with it for what it's worth, but it can take you out of the story at times and it definitely shows its age.
Do not fail me. We, you and I. We, you, me, everybody in this room. Oh.
Negative number 3, more Bi-Han. Mythologies doesn't expand on Bi-Han enough in my opinion. I wanted to learn more about his history with the Lin Kuei and just a bit more character development, especially since this is the last time we'd see him as Sub-Zero until MK9. MK Mythologies Sub-Zero is an important step in the series despite it being such a poorly received game. The context provided in the instruction manual increases the impact of this story exponentially. Anyone who doesn't understand the background of Shinnok, Quan Chi, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero probably felt completely lost while playing the game. With that said, the story in this game is incredible. It magnificently sets the stage for Mortal Kombat 4 and simultaneously gives us details about the different feuds and events that occurred even before the first game. The gameplay itself and the cheesy cutscenes within are nothing to write home about, but the lore in this game honestly shocked me upon further review. Without this game, we would not have the context about MK3, Bi-Han versus Hanzo, the Netherrealm, Quan Chi, Shinnok, Fujin, and there's a bunch more. This by no means is a reflection of the gameplay experience, but Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero is a genuine A-tier story.
The crushing pound of the mallet. The shattering blow of the club. The slashing edge of the blade. They call to you.
Not long after MK Mythologies introduced these two new villains, their stories alongside various other old and new fighters would continue in Mortal Kombat 4 and Gold. All of the build-up centered around Quan Chi and Shinnok would pay off in this game. In yet another Raiden monologue, this is what you'd see when booting up the game.
Thousands of years ago, in a battle with the fallen elder god known as Shinnok, I was responsible for the death of an entire civilization. To rid all realms of Shinnok's menace, I waged a war that plunged the earth into centuries of darkness and banished Shinnok into a place called the Netherrealm. Now, after Shao Kahn's defeat at the hands of Earth's warriors, Shinnok has managed to escape his confines in the Netherrealm. The war is now being fought once again. Only this time, it can be won by mortals.
So, it basically tells the story of this guy, Shinnok, the fallen Elder God, who Raiden banished to the Netherrealm. Following Shao Kahn's presumed death in MK3, he's escaped, and it's up to the heroes of this game to save the day once again. Now, as far as how Shinnok escaped, it's revealed in series newcomer Tanya's bio that she was responsible, having snuck him through a portal into the realm of Edenia as a disguised refugee. That's pretty much it, apart from the side plots. But again, I'm trying to keep the focus on the main story here. The canonical ending belongs to, you guessed it,
Liu Kang.
Here's his ending as it was.
The war is over. I've once again defended my title as champion of Mortal Kombat and defended the realm of Earth, but I have failed to save the realm of Edenia. In doing so, I have also lost Kitana forever. Kitana?
Yes, Liu Kang. It is I.
But I thought you were gonna lick—
With Shinnok's destruction, you have not only saved the Earth, but you've also saved my own realm. For that, I can never repay you.
Knowing that you survived is all that I need.
As heir to the throne of my realm, I offer you the chance to rule at my side, as King of Edenia, forever.
I cannot accept your offer. I belong here on Earth as champion of Mortal Kombat.
Then, I wish you good luck, Liu Kang, on all your journeys.
Goodbye, Princess Kitana.
When all is said and done, the end of this game has the following. Shinnok has been defeated. Raiden becomes an Elder God. Fujin is named the new protector of Earthrealm. Scorpion has Quan Chi right where he wants him. Reiko is doing his best Shao Kahn cosplay. Cyrax joins Earthrealm. Newcomer Jarek is, well, let's just roll the tape on that one.
Wait, this is brutality. You can't do it. Wrong, Jarek. This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
And finally, Kung Lao has avenged his ancestor's death with a ceremonial strike against Goro, leading to a peace agreement with Edenia. Oh yeah, in this game marked the debut of Meat.
That's why he's the GOAT!
Wrong, Jarek. This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
Moving to the analysis, let's start with the positives. Positive number 1. More characters. One thing I will always admire about this series is the addition of new characters, for better or worse. This positive will come up in almost every game, and although the development of some of them in MK4 is subpar at best, it fleshes out the villains such as Shinnok, Quan Chi, and Tanya, who was essentially the catalyst of this entire game's conflict. I also like the return of Fujin, who had one of the better arcs in the game. Man, this guy seriously didn't get enough love. I have certain feelings about Shinnok, but his introduction is cool, and I think Quan Chi is great. Positive number 2, the Netherrealm. The expansion of this universe to include the Netherrealm is arguably the best part of the entire game. It's portrayed as this dark realm with a red landscape, a truly horrifying visual in 1997. This is where the primary antagonist, Shinnok, spent centuries before escaping. The rest of this realm is left to the imagination, but this would become a focal point going forward. I'm also fairly certain it was initially referred to as the Netherrealm in UMK3, and it was cool to see Mortal Kombat's underworld have a more notable presence. Positive number 3, the Elder Gods. This game provided more information about the Elder Gods, who were referenced numerous times in previous games.
This amulet, it is the key to Shinnok's power as an Elder God.
Since these beings are, at this very moment, and essentially up until Mortal Kombat 11, the highest powers in the universe, this felt like a solid takeaway from a lore perspective. I mean, the Elder Gods created this very universe, and they remained the overseers of the realms and are always good for a meme or two.
Please advise me of what you learn. I must consult with the Elder Gods.
Positive number 4, Shinnok's Amulet. MK4 further develops the importance of Shinnok's Amulet, which was the focal point in Mythologies. Seeing it back and prominently featured in this game shows the developer's ability to maintain continuity. We all know how critical this artifact would become down the line. While I wouldn't necessarily say it's crucial to this game, we saw its capabilities in Quan Chi's ending, and the amulet would become a constant. Positive number 5, continuing the lore. It's funny, I've always wondered how far in advance the developers planned these individual character arcs. What's more, how did they determine what would be canon? As far as MK4 is concerned, despite the cheesy ending cinematics, I enjoyed the individual character development for the most part. Scorpion stands out considering this game officially confirms that Quan Chi eliminated the Shirai Ryu and his family, and not the original Sub-Zero. I also enjoyed Fujin becoming the new protector of Earthrealm, and Raiden becoming an Elder God. Let's jump over to the negatives. Negative number 1, the main story. The story itself in MK4 is one of the worst we've seen thus far, in my opinion. I know that's crazy for me to say, considering how primitive the first 3 games were, but this one just felt less important. I will say that the concept is intriguing, but Shinnok isn't a compelling enough boss to carry the story. While I appreciate that MK4 expanded on what unfolded in Mythologies, I think it fell flat overall. That's saying a lot, considering this game marked the series' move into the 3D era with upgraded visuals and full motion videos to tell the story. To me, it just feels like MK3 on a larger scale with one subpar villain and one brilliant villain. Speaking of which, negative number 2, Shinnok. I had seriously high hopes for Shinnok, but he just doesn't cut it for me as the main antagonist. I do like the backstory of him being a fallen Elder God, because it sounds interesting paired with him escaping this dark realm where he's remained a prisoner forever. But I just think it was executed poorly. Shinnok lacks the presence and aura of other villains like Shao Kahn and even Shang Tsung. In fact, I'd wager that he's a less menacing version of Shang Tsung. Perhaps it has something to do with his design, but I simply don't buy into Shinnok as a genuine threat. Negative number 3, the endings. Like Mythologies, the game is just memeable with its goofy voice acting and cutscenes, which I understand has nothing to do with the plot, but as I said earlier, it can really take you out of the game. I really wish I could go back in time and see how people reacted to these endings, because I'm sure that it was absolutely mind-blowing.
No, that was a ceremonial strike of revenge for my ancestor that you killed in Mortal Kombat so many years ago.
And do you wish to continue this battle?
No. I wish only to settle the differences between us.
Your ancestor was a great man, and a brave and noble warrior. You should be proud of his accomplishments. If he won, perhaps it would be my own son, seeking to settle differences with him.
Maybe they should have stuck to the screens for this one. Negative number 4, the ending. This is a huge one for me, and that is that Liu Kang winning in this game is just too much. With so many new and returning characters at their disposal, this was once again the perfect moment for a different character, perhaps even a villain, to defeat Shinnok and continue building the threatening forces in this universe. Imagine Reiko was the canonical winner, and we got to see where this storyline went. Furthermore, Liu Kang has easily one of the weakest endings in the entire game, if not the weakest. It certainly has nothing on Jax. From a story perspective, MK4 and Gold are the weakest by far, in my opinion. There are some interesting concepts kicking around, but the new characters didn't add much apart from Tanya and Fujin, although Fujin wasn't technically even new. Some endings created intrigue about what could be next, but Liu Kang's ending and the plot itself were subpar. Neither game adds much substance to the main story, and I thought the character development was just okay. Bundle that with Shinnok being an underwhelming villain, and I guess MK4 can settle into the C tier.
Don't make me laugh.
Midway followed Mortal Kombat Gold with the series' second spin-off, Mortal Kombat Special Forces, released in 1999. Now, if you've heard anything about this game, you've probably heard that it's terrible. In a similar vein to Mythologies, this was the most significant shift from the traditional fighting game style. Where Mythologies at least had a fighting game feel on a 2D plane, Special Forces trades that for a straightforward action-adventure beat-em-up. With that covered, let's get to the story. This game centers around Major Jackson Briggs and Kano, the latter of whom freed his Black Dragon clan from captivity and decimated Jax's team.
Kano, you're gonna pay for this.
Kano's ensuing plan is to obtain the Eye of Shitien, a powerful ancient crystal that allows the user to open portals at will. The story is mainly told through these interactions between Jax and his base operative, Gemini. Jax's assignment in this game is to defeat the escaped villains one by one, and those include the following:
No Face, Tazia, Jarek, and Trimmer.
He ultimately defeats Kano and uses the Eye to return to Earthrealm. And that's it. That's pretty much the story of Mortal Kombat Special Forces, and with all that said, let's get to the analysis.
Oh yeah.
Instead of doing a positives and negatives for this game, I'll just be straightforward. To call this game soulless might be an understatement. I know the stories in previous games weren't the most polished, but this doesn't even feel like a Mortal Kombat game, which I guess was the point, but not really. It's been widely publicized that this game endured significant development issues following John Tobias's abrupt exit from Midway. The studio then fast-tracked the game, and this was the end result. From top to bottom, this is not a good game on any level, but the plot is as basic as it gets, with zero intrigue or character development. The villains are forgettable apart from Tremor, mainly because he was the newest palette swap ninja shown in the series. The Eye of Shitien was not developed well, and the game ends with Jax returning to Earthrealm. Let's not forget that Jax has metal arms in this game, despite it supposedly taking place before Mythologies. As we all know, Jax did not receive metal arms canonically until Mortal Kombat 3. I'm not sure what else to add. This game is a stain on Mortal Kombat, and while it's fun to revisit for a meme or two, to call the story forgettable is an understatement. I'm putting it in the D tier.
You're gonna pay for this.
That covers the first 6 stories across 9 games in the Ultimate Mortal Kombat story tier list. Before ripping into the heart of the 3D era in the next video, let's recap the rankings so far. S tier has Mortal Kombat 2, the A tier includes Mortal Kombat 3, and surprisingly, Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. The B tier includes only the original Mortal Kombat from 1992. The C tier includes Mortal Kombat 4/Gold. And in the D/F/Trash tier, we have Mortal Kombat Special Forces. If I had to nominate one for GOAT status in this video alone, it would be MK2. But there are many, many, many more games to cover. Reflecting back on the Classic era, it's really difficult for me to roast any of the first few games, at least through Trilogy. In all honesty, the technology was not there to allow players to fully immerse themselves in the story like we do nowadays. As a result, you had to use your imagination, which isn't a bad thing. With that said, the developers did an excellent job conveying the atmosphere through the stages, the stage fatalities, and the characters. The first few stories are simple and understandable. MK92 is the tournament, MK2 took place in Outworld with higher stakes, and MK3 is the invasion of Earthrealm. It's a nearly perfect 3-game arc. MK Mythologies was an insane leap from the 2D era, and it really gave the writers more freedom to craft a narrative. While not technically the Classic era, at least one of the spin-offs added depth to the universe. I feel a certain way about MK4 personally. It didn't give me what I wanted after the introduction of Shinnok and Quan Chi. But to be fair, the Netherrealm aspect and a few characters did save it from being in the D tier. And by no means would I do that game a disservice by putting it on the same level as Special Forces. Anyway, I'm rambling, but with all that said, those are the rankings for every game in the classic / spin-off / start to the Mortal Kombat 3D era. Next time, we'll get deep into the 3D era, covering Deadly Alliance, Deception, Shaolin Monks, Armageddon, and MK vs. DC. This is gonna be great. If you made it this far, comment Toasty down below. You know, for science. Also, don't leave without letting me know your thoughts on where these MK stories rank on your tier list, as the discussion is usually S tier. As always, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another video soon.